Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at the new best picks for solo queue in 8.6. This was a big patch, so quite a lot has changed. So I think it'll be better today to cover more picks than normal, just a little bit less time spent on each. As always, timestamps and a list of champions are in the description if you'd rather read or skip to any section, but let me know if you think there are any that I missed. So AD carries had a fair shake up this patch, with Xayah rakan getting a bit weaker and item changes, but even with that, we have the top 4 for solo queue that seem to be Xayah, Kai'Sa, Caitlyn, and Jinx, and we're going to focus mostly on Kai'Sa and Jinx today. I guess not enough people bought the Kai'Sa bundle when she was released. These buffs were probably a little bit too good. Honestly, her win rate has spiked up massively and is staying up as well. She definitely needed some buffs. She was a little bit too weak, but she had this insane late game. So think of her kind of like a Vayne. Her win rate is normal until about 30 minutes and then it jumps right up. The thing is, I think she has always been good with the lead, but now she gets that lead a lot easier with the buffs, or doesn't fall as far behind, I guess, so she seems way stronger. Even with the ability power buffs, we're still building Essence Reaver normal, like just as Xayah. Really, the rocket spam damage with this when it's on such a low cooldown and with all that AD is on a single target at least is nuts. Kai'Sa is hard to deal with and does a lot of damage, plus she is really fun to play, so I'd expect now she is actually pretty good, she'll get really popular. Jinx is the other one that we're going to talk about, and I think she is actually in a good spot for now. Not ridiculous, but definitely strong. The buffs we had a while ago that made her spike more mid game helped a ton. Now she can actually match a lot of other AD carries, especially crit ones, and do a lot of work. Having no mobility definitely hurts. This is why I don't think she's ridiculous. It makes it so you can actually punish her and you can shut her down. If you don't though, she will dish out a lot of damage from very high range, and that is what makes her so good. She's relatively straightforward to play, which makes her ideal for new AD players or low ranks as well, but she is still decent higher up. So quick mentions for the other two. Even with the Rakan combination nerf, Xayah is extremely strong in the hands of a half decent player. The Rakan synergy is not broken anymore, but it is still top tier and it's still very hard to play against. Caitlyn is just a safe choice, has decent wave clear, can stall the game, and great synergy with some meta picks now that can like set up her traps, making her way more deadly. For honorable mentions, we're going to look at Draven and Lucian. So Draven seems to be the only AD who can actually use Conqueror and use it well, as long as you go balls deep when it's active. Lucian, after his buffs and pressy attack buffs a few patches ago, seems pretty good now. He can do a lot of damage and is not bottom of the win rates anymore, but he isn't top tier either. Let's move on to the mid lane now, and there are going to be a lot of good stuff as usual, but Swain, Fizz, Cassio, and Anivia really stand out at the top of the roll. Swain is at a pretty nuts level in 8.6. He doesn't seem to be slowing down much, honestly, either. Cassio is one of the very few mid picks who can actually kind of shut him down, but other matchups are really good. The thing we're realizing a lot more since his rework is he is no longer like an off-tank damage soak. He actually does a lot of damage. He still heals, he's relatively tanky, but getting close to him is kind of a death sentence because he is going to be able to kill you. That added level of like lane and teamfight power that let him kill you throughout the game makes him so much better than he used to be. Fizz is the other one we're going to look at properly. Has a lot of easy champions to kill mid lane right now, and this meta is almost ideal for him. If you can avoid stuff like Anivia or Swain, there aren't that many mages that you can't smash or at least go even with and roam. Fizz is always like a face roll solo queue pick, right? But he seems to be way more reliable than other seasons. He can control like a game by roaming, stomp his lane if he plays it right, and keep messing people up in team fights as well. He's one assassin who just doesn't really fall off, has enough playmaking potential and enough ways to survive as well. Cassiopeia though is still abusing the double scaling of tier and Rod of Ages. Her items and the matchups are just in a great spot, and she's a real lane bully. Anivia is the same kind of thing. Double scaling does a lot of damage, but a lot safer with egg as well. Vel'Koz is going to be our honorable mention. Doesn't get a ton of love, but he's a solid pick in 8.6. He uses these new items we had insanely well. Luden's Rush is more poke and mana now, early cooldown reduction. Leandri's, you're going to get that full damage amp by the time you use your ultimate, which is ideal, and topped off with a death cap giving more percentage. He does have some rough matchups, which is why he'll probably never be seen as broken, but if he gets ahead, all that long range AoE damage is brutal. As usual, the jungle is probably the most diverse role in the game at the moment. We had a lot of dustbait changes centered around junglers though, but 4 stand out for sure: Shaco, Warwick, Jax, and Kha'Zix. I actually skipped over these Shaco changes in the patch video, but as a lot of you pointed out, the change was crazy. They added a lot of damage onto his Q with a 70% bonus AD ratio as well. I thought this was kind of replacing the backstab damage, but it wasn't. Even with the dustblade nerfs, he does a stupid amount of damage now with that and his new Q. After like just 3 days into 8.6, he holds the highest win rate in the game and is being played way more now as well. We'll probably see this toned down a little bit in 8.7. It might not seem that gross right now, but wait until you actually play against it and you will see what I mean. The fact that he can dive in now with 1, 2, 3 or more items and just assassinate people so easily is what makes him just so good and winning a lot of games. The next one we're going to talk about is Warwick again. We haven't talked about him for a few weeks, but it is kind of stupid, honestly. He's not far behind Shaco's win rate right now, but he has been like this for months. He is banned a lot more, like slowly getting a lot worse. He does fall off, but games aren't as long anymore. The reason he is so good is just because he does everything. He can tank, he can do damage, he can engage, he can even farm quickly. He builds Cinder Hulk, but he can 1v9 the game and do a lot of damage. Definitely a really good solo queue choice to climb with. Jax is one of the others, and he's a lot like Warwick, really a well-rounded jungler. He scales well, he'll be able to carry the game, but he's just simple to play and to be good with. Kha'Zix is a bit different. He's actually quite difficult to play to be good with, I think, but he seems slightly better after his buffs, even with the Duskblade nerfs. If he finds you alone now with the 100% isolation damage bonus, you're really in trouble, and he will do a lot more. Master Yi is our honorable mention. I'm not saying the new keystone is broken on Yi, but it is pretty broken on Yi, to be honest. At least late game it is. In team fights, that thing is nuts with Yi and all the damage he built. It makes him even more ridiculous than before. He is definitely better in 8.6 because you can just have this insane late game, and especially at lower ranks as well, where you should in theory be getting late game more often. Next up, we're going to look at support as usual, then top lane to finish off the video. And even with the ignite buffs and the heal nerfs for the support role, the meta is moving back to sensor stuff. The top 4 look like Janna, Nami, Lulu, and Rakan. Rakan is the first one we're going to look at. He is just a monster right now, and especially in team fights. In lane, he can fight with a more aggressive AD carry quite easily, or Xayah, for example, right? But that's not really what makes him so good. I know it's kind of how we think of him, but his win rate gets slowly better and better the longer the game goes. In team fights, he can pull off a massive engage and set up everything. It is so fast, it's really hard to predict. He can mess up the entire enemy team, and he's still building Sensor and Redemption, remember, so you won't get outscaled by other supports. He seems to be a really solid middle ground right now. You have the engage and playmaking stuff that you would have with an Alistar, for example, but he still buffs your AD properly with Sensor. Lulu is the other one out of the 4 that we're going to talk about properly, and it's one of those picks that can just like hard win a game by herself if she has a good AD. The meta is full of later scaling auto-based AD carries right now in 8.6, and Lulu gives them way too much extra damage. She is now one of the most banned supports because of that. It feels like a ticking time bomb in this meta. You're gonna have to shut the AD and her down, otherwise like they will 2v8 the rest of the game, and it's not even that easy to do that because she can polymorph, she can slow, she can speed her AD up as well, and do some decent damage in lane. Especially in a duo, actually, it becomes really hard to beat when they have a bit more coordination, but even just with a random AD and a Lulu, it's still gonna work. Janna is similar to Lulu, just protects really well and can even bully a bit more in lane in Season 8. Nami is more focused though on being a lane bully, but it's such a versatile pick. Like, you can protect or you can make plays with your kit. The honorable mention is going to be Sona. Hasn't been played quite as much recently, but still a really good choice, and especially in this meta. She is a team fight queen once her cooldown reduction comes online from her ultimate ranks and you can spam your auras, but just her ultimate can set up a lot as well. Having a mix of like heals and damage in the lane phase and that kill pressure is really good as a pick anyway. It should make her good in any meta. The problem was when like Alistar and Blitzcrank and Leona would kill her all the time, but those are kind of falling a bit out of the meta, and the meta is shifting more to Sensor. Top lane is our last role, but it is a little bit different. It's going to change a lot over the next few weeks, I think, as people learn to use Conqueror properly, but Darius, Kled, Sion, and Camille stand out so far. First up, we're going to look at Darius. Conqueror has already become the most played keystone for him and wins more than any others at the same time. It is pretty perfect, really, right? Stack it up on minions, pull them in, activate it, do your full combo, and dunk them down to finish it off. You get a lot of use out of that true damage, and it just makes him even more deadly in the lane phase and throughout the game. Darius was already pretty decent. This has kind of tipped him over the edge a bit more to be really good. One thing as well in 8.6 is a bit different. His win rate is just even throughout the game. Normally it will be higher early and fall off later. This seems to have evened it out more. That is probably due to Conqueror making it so his damage doesn't fall off as hard and gives him a bit more threat in team fights. Another Conqueror abuser, and one of the best now, is actually going to be Kled, even though he isn't played as much. If Darius is kind of like a melee abuser, Kled is the bruiser abuser. He just out-duels them. He gets even more use out of Conqueror too, because he builds a lot more damage. Darius will have that 20% conversion to true damage from his Black Cleaver and his abilities, right? But Kled gets it from his Cleaver, Hydra, all the AD from Guardian Angel and Sterix and stuff. He doesn't really build a proper tank, so higher damage means more true damage. It just makes him way more deadly, basically, and a Kled charging you down was already going to be a problem. You also have the added chase down with your ultimate, making you an amazing team engage pick. That actually on its own, just the ultimate can win you games. Camille is one of the others that is getting better and better with Conqueror as the patch goes on, and maybe it will turn into something that is pretty overpowered when people actually figure it out. It isn't as straightforward as the others to use with it. If it's active when you fly in, it does some serious damage, but it's not the easiest thing to prep before. Sion is still the tank of choice though. He can win his lane, he does some decent damage and has really good engage. He just doesn't die though, and having a front line that lasts longer is really important in this meta. The honorable mention this time around is going to be Quinn. The buffs and the bug fix here seem to do a lot of work for her, and she's actually really good. Not too popular just yet, but holds one of the highest top lane win rates for now, and it is back to this really heavy burst roam build with lots of lethality and crit. All of her keystones are doing well right now. That is the mark of actually a proper good champion, and it seems like her mid game where she roams and annihilates people is where most of her wins are coming from. So that is going to wrap up 8.6 in a nutshell and who is doing much better. I hope you enjoyed the video, but for now I will leave you with the robots.